don't know if you've noticed this, but we're kind of like at the peak of the AI wars. And when I say the peak of the AI wars, I think we're at the first peak of the AI wars, right? Like it's no longer kind of like about building belief around AI now that there is all these different tools, there's all these different agent builders, there's the do-it-yourself option. And it's time to shift the conversation from like, what's the best technology out here to this idea that how do I set myself up to win, right? Like, how do I de-risk this idea? And that all revolves, tale as old as time, when it comes to technology around adoption. Well, good news. We've done this now 500 times. The data is there. Rue is now talking to us, telling us what the adoption pitfalls are here. And I got invited to speak about this at NARPM Broker Owner a couple weeks ago. And lucky for you, I filmed it. So I got to link this session to you, whether you paid the ticket and paid for the flight and had an awesome time in New Orleans or not. This is a leaked presentation I made at NARPM Broker Owner of how to de-risk agentic AI adoption. Enjoy it. Welcome to the Property Management Frame Breakers podcast. I'm your host, Pablo Gonzalez, and I am here to introduce you to the folks in the property management space that have broken the frame of what you may believe was possible. This podcast is presented by Vendoroo. It is your all-in-one AI solution for resolving your maintenance needs. Let's go. Thank you for being here. I honestly thought these theater sessions were going to be like 2 or 3 people in here. So seeing you all, seeing the Wrights, Chris Wiley, seeing like some of our clients in here. This is really, really cool. I appreciate you being here. Anybody here not familiar, or who can explain the difference between generative and agentic AI? I describe it as a genie versus a Terminator. Like a genie, you rub the lamp, you ask for a wish, it's magical, right? It gives you an amazing answer, you get 1,000,000 wishes. Terminator, you set it to do a job and it will continue to do it until it does, right? Luckily in property management, we're giving them jobs that are not kill John Connor in the future. But what we're talking about here is exclusively agentic AI, right? We've been doing this now for 2 years, and it's been just a fascinating kind of like context change of what's happening, where we're going through this world of transformation. And I'm just going to say it. These are like the worst slides I've ever put together in my life. All of this is going to be in the storytelling, right? Like these are just bullet points that I had to put up here. But the biggest kind of thing that's happening right now that we see when we're talking about failure in agentic adoption is treating the agent as a software. And that's totally normal, right? In these moments of transformation, what always happens across all these different context changes is that we generally anchor ourselves in the past and try to bring it into the future. But what we have seen over and over again in these like big disruptive moments is that the people that really win stand in the future and reverse engineer the past. So it's totally natural that we're looking at these agents and thinking of them as software. What does that mean? We're gonna dive more into what that means a little bit later, but it's essentially when you're looking at software, you're looking at like a gain in productivity, you're looking at a certain expense, and you're comparing it to your tech expense. You're not comparing it to your labor expense, right? The idea that one agent can do the job of like 3 or 4 different people, and those 3 or 4 different people are like, one might be a $7 an hour person, another might be a $10 an hour person, another might be a $60,000 a year person. You know, that level of anchoring is the reality of what we're seeing coming out of these agents from people that succeed. So when I say we're treating it as a software, we're saying I'm paying $40,000 a year for a plugin, right? Like that's wild, right? Like that, you would not want to do that, right? So that's one of the biggest mistakes that we're making, and I'm not trying to anchor the price. I want to anchor the outputs. It's just the easiest way to understand that piece. And just like all these transformation moments, we're beyond that moment where we're like building belief in this thing, right? I think the last year and a half with like my cool little title of Chief Evangelist has been a lot of fun in building belief. This is what's possible. This is what's coming down the pike. I love that stuff. I wish we were still in that phase. We are now in a phase where AI is here and it's everywhere. right? And I can sense that because what we were talking about 2 years ago, what we were talking a year ago, like there was nobody that was out there that kind of like looked at us, looked like us. So it was very easy to differentiate. Now there is, not just the big platforms are embedding their own AI and their own agents, but there's other agentic builders, and there should be, right? Like that validates the category. This is real, this is coming, there's gonna be many more. And there's the DIY solution, right? Has anybody here messed around with Clawbot? Are you going that deep? Okay, yeah. That's, now there's DIY, right? Now you're gonna hear about, you can do this yourself as well. So it's here, we're seeing these results across the board, and the failure is no longer this like nascent technology. The failure is how we adopt it. And what's ironic about that is that's exactly what software sounds like, right? No, the software works, right? It's just you guys aren't using it right. Kind of same story, right? Like the failure is still adoption, but it is how we adopt, how we onboard an agent that's really making the difference and de-risking this experience for people. And we now, thanks to doing this thing for 2 years, we now have this really unique data set that's never like existed before, right? These are the stats of some of it, but the story is, when we set out to build AIs that perform the way that a human performs, right? When we set out to build out digital workforce, you could not do that on day one. You could not do that 2 years ago, right? The technology at that point was the shortcoming. It wasn't the adoption. So what did we do? We had to build, essentially, a VA company, right? An outsourced maintenance department, in order to not just show the kind of like rapid improvement on like the humans using the AI and informing the AI, but because if you're gonna manage an agent the way that you manage an employee, my friends, I promise you, it is one-to-one the way that you manage a VA. So having that insight onto the communications and the feedback loops and all these different things were absolutely crucial to be able to actually build an agent that is delivering these transformative results. So where are we at now? We started with humans that were taking all the decisions and the actions, being informed by an AI and informing the AI back, all of it being tracked through AI. I'm going to say AI 35 million times in this presentation. Then the AI got good enough where the humans were no longer making the decisions, but they were there to take the actions, right? Like it's good enough for that, but we don't really trust it on the action side. And then we reach this point where the AI can perform like a human being, where it can understand context, it can make decisions, it can see the workflows that aren't working perfectly and still keep going. And we'll talk about what we did with the team of humans behind that in a little while, because it's really important to the story. But that's where we are, right? So now we're at 500 plus agentic AI deployments inside of real property management companies, 2 million plus tasks audited. Now I really am going to read this thing. We've realized that it can really reach this level of 98% autonomous decision making. What that looks like is we're going to talk about the touch points in a work order, right? But a work order has about 27 touch points per. So 98% essentially means that like every other work order, one of those touch points needs human involvement. That's what 98% automation looks like, right? And yeah, we see 14,000 monthly edge cases. We're going to talk a lot about edge cases because it's the key to success here, and it's the key to like really being able to deploy this thing from a trust level. And ultimately, it's behavior, being informed by workflows, being informed by policy, being informed by human feedback. I was just talking to Peter Lohman outside, and I think the most like unique thing that we have right now is this database of like who gives the best feedback in here, right? Because the AI is a perfect mirror, and it'll tell you. There's no emotion around this idea of are you telling it the right thing or not, right? So. And this is at the bottom line. This is at the crux of everything, right? What Rue taught us is that this is a touch point problem. It showed us, we thought there was about like 18, 19 touch points per work order. It showed us that there's an average of 27 coordination actions per work order. It showed us that 70% of interruptions are coordination, and follow-up on tasks. And what that represents is those are the places where you can fumble the context, right? When there is a touch point coordination between two parties, if the context isn't there, and it's a game of telephone, or it's a game of guessing game, that's when the decision is at risk. And the decision is what the agent does well, as opposed to generative AI or software, right? And this became really, really obvious when we realized that once you automate this layer, we immediately see a 42% drop in open work orders when you reach that level of automation. What's an open work order? It means a property of yours that has a work order open, right? And to no surprise, maybe, it's literally a lot of it is just the final little touch points that have to do to close out a work order based on your thing because you get busy and you don't close it out. So you have 40% fewer open tabs in the brain because this thing just continues to go. And the rollout is everything. Here I want to anchor you back to the employee conversation, right? What is a half-implemented outcome with an employee? Yeah, they're pretty good at their job, but I don't know if I trust them with everything, right? A really good employee rollout is Pablo's got it. Best hire ever, right? I've got a guy on my team called Brian. The guy is awesome, right? Like I know that I can just move through the world, throwing things in the air, he can catch them and put them into motion, right? Like that type of employee is a full one. And again, it's not the tech, it's the rollout. It is, at its core, earning trust. It is, can you or your team say, Rue's got it, right? I know that this thing is going to happen. Where does trust break? Trust breaks in these edge cases that we're going to talk about, right? So you can be at 98% decision making, but if these edge cases don't move along the way that they're supposed to, then you find yourself back into micromanaging that employee, back into doubling the labor that needs to be done, right? Staying up at night wondering if it's getting done. That's the type of stuff that as operators, kills us. And this is the new standard. We now have a population at the top of this 500 plus deployments that are at this level. This is what an agent can actually do when you reach these high levels of automation. 99.9% vendor accuracy, almost 10% triage, troubleshooting, work orders without dispatching a vendor, 98% autonomous decisions, 94% resident satisfaction. Now when every interaction between your employee and your residents are recorded, guess what? You now can understand the sentiment of all these conversations and you can actually know your resident satisfaction as opposed to guessing it, right? 0.04% error rate and 24/7 coverage. This is one of the big things. We're in a 24/7 world, right? This is the number. This is the big one, right? This is the quantifiable thing of teammates. People that do well, people in this subset average 2 times the amount of feedback that they give to their agent. Kind of like if you were bringing on an employee and you were telling them, good job, bad job, hey, next time do it like this, right? It directly correlates to having an employee and the feedback you give them. So twice the amount of feedback. What does that feedback look like for an agent? Sometimes it just looks like clicking the thumbs up or the thumbs down. Sometimes it looks like, hey, why did you dispatch this plumber? Listening to it and be like, cool. The problem here is that he sucks at repairing drywall. So if you ever have to get in a wall to do plumbing, send Manny instead of Freddie, right? That type of feedback, very similar to an employee. I was talking to Aaron Ivey, one of our early evangelists as a client, and he's been super busy, and he was telling me that he hasn't gone into the software, he hasn't gone into Rue or taken a call with our team in 6 months, and he's like, I feel like it hasn't really progressed. It's just kind of where it was. I'm like, yeah, Aaron. When's the last time that you had an employee that you didn't talk to for 6 months? Do you think he got better or she got better? Or do you think they've just kind of done their own thing, right? It is an employee. It has its benefits that employees don't have, but it really is that. And this is the blueprint for success. Think about, again, hiring an employee. First 30 days, if you're just on top of everything that they do, right? This is someone you're bringing in, an agent's coming in to do a job. Before you were doing this job, If you can spend those 30 days looking at everything it does, and you can now, right? Because it records everything, you have every decision, and like giving it a thumbs up when it does something good, asking it why it's doing something when it did something that you didn't expect, and then giving the feedback of like why you did it the wrong way. If you spend 30 days on your agent in the first 30 days, looking at everything it's doing, learning from it, and it learning from you, then you get to the point that we all try to get to with employees, which is the delegate phase, right? That's when you're like, all right, cool, you got it. I'll let you go. I'm gonna start checking in on, maybe like moments of emergencies, high stakes moments, there's escalations that are gonna happen. The employee's gonna raise his hand and say, I need a little bit more feedback here, right? And a good agent should be taught to do that as well. And then that's another about 30 days, and that's when you're at this level where you're really optimizing. Now you're really looking at, the business operator language is the forest, not the trees. You're looking across your like vendor database to see where your gaps are. You start managing vendor relationships, owner relationships. You're doing other things while spending time truly, truly optimizing for like what else is out there and what more can I do with AI and how much more can I do it. Very similar, I can't say that I'm the best hirer and onboarder in the world, but to me, this is what the best hirers and onboarders in the world have, right? An onboarding program that has a 90-day review process where you know how it goes. You're giving somebody some time to learn, some time to like get their feet wet, and then time to run, right? Weekly dedicated one-on-ones after this is over, just like an employee. I'm gonna say this 1,000 times because it really is the key to winning here. And if you really give it these 90 days, it's great. Here's what we don't see. We don't see more workflows meaning better results. If you're, again, going to put your employee cap on, if you start giving your employees, hey, I want you to do this thing, and this thing, and do it like these 10 different ways, the chance of you giving that employee conflicting information is much higher than if you give that person the context, right? When we talk about quality of inputs mattering more than the quantity, it's just going deep into every decision that they did wrong or that you could tweak. Go really deep into this is why you would do it this way. And in that way, it really learns like a person that doesn't forget the feedback, right? That is the way that you have less workflows and more independence for your teammates that you now trust. So spending time on the feedback and on the context is the best part of it. Over-engineering instead of nailing, like the mistake is over-engineering instead of nailing operational truths. And this is where it comes from. This is another data point that Rue has taught us. Each decision has the ability to have 445 context points. That's a mind-boggling number when you think about it. But that we would have never learned that number had AI not been reviewing all this type of stuff. We see in 90 days, 85 workflow updates. And they're not workflow updates like I'm gonna add this workflow or add that workflow or whatever. It's once you start giving it context, then it starts to understand how to make better decisions. So it's like, oh, okay, cool. So then this workflow over here, what you really meant to say was this. It's that level of like feedback that you can have when you start training it the right way. And we are seeing every 1 in every 50 work orders surfaces a new insight. Surfaces a new, oh, okay, this is cool. This is something to give a little bit more context on. And this is kind of like, this is the part on the adoption piece, right? Like this is the risk. It's this idea that the trust lives in the edge cases. If, when someone does a duplicate work order, you can't trust this thing to catch it. Or when an owner says, or a renter says, you know what, troubleshoot it with my wife. And now has no other way to go there, right? Or there's a home warranty and you've got to send the same contractor from before, even though they're not your preferred contractor, right? These edge cases really, really matter. They don't happen all the time, but when they do happen, this is where your problems come from, and this is where you lose trust in your employee, right? If you can't do that, then I gotta be checking in to make sure that that's not really happening. And we catch 14,000 of these a month. So our solution was, remember how we told you that we had built this human team to kind of inform the agent, to then kind of like manage the agent, and then the agent was ready to run free? The same way that, everybody hears this idea of like the most AI company is going to be the most human company, right? You're going to have a chance to automate towards or away from people. And what that means is like as this technology gets more and more powerful, the question you have to ask yourself is, where do I put my humans in the place to succeed where only they can provide this value, where it's no more checklisting, where it's like you can really truly add value. So this team of 50 that we had that are expert maintenance coordinators that are experts with AI, as we built the AI has its own judgment, then it's got an AI judge, and now we have this team of human judges that are looking at all of these edge cases as people onboard and people do this type of stuff. They're there to fix workflows before they go live, before you automate chaos, those kinds of things. We truly believe that the transformation that's going to come from agentic AI is going to come from companies that, yes, they're obsessed over the quality of the technology and the AI and the data set and all these different things, but also have this human layer that's going to continue to be on the edge of it, that can continue to not have it escalate every single thing that happens to you on day 1 through 30, right? And curb that piece, because that's the way that your team loses the trust if that's not caught early on. So the missing layer that we see for most people, if yes, we have this layer, but other people that are using it that are doing their own agents, is that human layer, right? Naming somebody on your team who is that human layer on your team is absolutely crucial. And you're giving that person kind of like the job description of the future, which is pretty cool as well, right? Like the agentic AI manager, right? That's a job description that's coming. And without that, it's really, once you reach these higher levels of automation, it's all about a smart escalation plan, like spending time on escalation. So I'm going to speed through this last part. I know I'm a little bit over time, but the ROI really does come from, like, what we are seeing is the ROI coming from doing different work, right? When you are no longer having, for our case, when you're no longer having to answer maintenance calls, follow up on work tickets, coordinate with residents and vendors and see who's coming up and follow up to make sure that the work thing got closed out, now you're off doing other things that only you can do, like business development, if that's your game. It's one of the reasons we see our average client grow by 30% post this, because they're devoting resources into that. Recently, we also figured out we have a client that's using it to sell. Chris Wiley's in the room, right? So actually uses the AI as a demo to differentiate himself from other property managers and justify his 10% fee as opposed to 5% fee. And it's really the interruptions, right? The reason why you need to be able to handle these escalations is because these is where the interruptions come from. They come from the stuff that you want to punch yourself in the face, right? Performance issues, closure follow-ups, owner inactivity, somebody not getting back to you. Who here is pumped to reach out to somebody for the 5th time because they're just too irresponsible to get back to you? Nobody, right? This is the stuff that it's really, really good at, all these follow-ups. And I swear I got one more slide in here. Yeah. So de-risking AI, de-risking agentic adoption. It's all about the implementation team. It's all about understanding who on your team is going to be mentoring it for the first 30 days, overseeing it for the next 30, and who from the agentic team that you have hired to help you solve this problem will be there to talk you through these moments. There is fear coming from your team, right? Like manifests as sabotage or manifests as panic. There is, a whole new thing that you're going through. You want to surround yourself with people that have gone through this and will spend time doing this thing with you, right? The weekly one-on-one or bi-weekly one-on-one has been a massive thing. That's something we figured out about mid-2025. And since then, our churn rate has dropped to 3%. So it's that first 90 days of onboarding guided, someone that can make sure that you're not going to scale chaos before you press go and then ruin the experience for your team. Someone that's going to help you curb out those edge cases. And then when you reach that decision, when you reach that moment of automating away or 2 people, can guide you through that because they've done it as well. We're offering AI diagnostic. We now have this thing where if you give us, it takes 2 minutes. If you give us a printout of your work order history, your PMA, and your lease agreement, we can run it against our population of agentic AI deployments and benchmark you to tell you how ready you are for agentic AI, give you across 8 different categories, kind of which are the ones that you're lacking in order to increase that automation, and then go point by point, giving you the insights of what your returns will be based on what you invest in. So I would love to do that for everybody in this room if you're curious of that. Come see us in the booth at Vendoroo, or we've got the Imperial Room 5A at the top of the stairs. Thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate this.